Good morning, friends and enemies. Welcome back into the BDGE Dynasty channel. My name is Adam. If you're new to the channel, make sure you go down, hit that subscribe button. If you're a Dynasty DGen, you're not going to want to miss any of the content that we're bringing to you here weekly, every single week on the game of Dynasty. Now, speaking of a week, it's been a little over a week since the NFL draft took place. All the chaos, the crazy stuff that took place and ensued in that NFL draft, we've kind of given a little bit of time to let the values and let what took place marinate. And because of that, we're going to be talking about 7 players that their value has really skyrocketed. I'm talking leaps and bounds higher than what it was pre-NFL draft. And going through those 7 players, the reason I wanted to let the values marinate and the things take place from the last week, we're actually going to be looking at all these players, not just, what we know about their landing spot and where they're going, their dynasty overall value, where they're maybe ranked in places like keep, trade, cut, but we're going to be talking about real trades. What are these players actually being traded for over the last week since this has now become concrete information, the draft capital and landing spot? And taking a look at all this, I'm going to be giving you kind of my thoughts about the situation that they're going into. All right, so skyrocketing value, what the hell does that even mean? Let me just go ahead and lay out criteria that took place for me to pick these 7 players. So essentially, to be on this list, we're going to be using keep, trade, cut. And I know that's not an end all be all, but one thing they do there is track very well the player values and overall the market up and down shifts. So essentially, to be on this list of skyrocketing value, you've got to be up at least roughly 100 spots before what the NFL draft really had for that player. So we're talking tiers and tiers and tiers of players that are being jumped for these specific rookies. So let's go ahead and we're going to start from the bottom. We're going to work our way up. Number 7 is Jaden James. And Jaden James, I'll just tell you that I was not the highest on this player coming out of Oregon relative to the overall running back field. And I thought this class in particular had a ton of running back value. And there was so many different players that I really liked in the class. I would say that primarily was more of the reason that I was lower on Jaden James relative to the rest of the running back pack. It wasn't necessarily that I thought Jaden James was a terrible prospect, but I was lower on him going into the NFL draft, I think, than probably consensus. We're looking at, if you go to Dynasty Data Lab, you can see the ADP for the recent drafts that have taken place since the NFL draft has gone down. And Jaden James is coming off the board at the 4th round, pick 39. So he's the running back 14, and he's coming off in the early part of round 4. So the 403 is his current ADP. And quickly here, just so you have comparative context when you're thinking about the values for these players. Right now, the 2026 early first round pick is valued at 5709. 5,709 is the value for an early first. 26 mid first is going to go down to 4828. 26 late first is down to 4,475. Then we go to the second round picks. A 26 early second is 3613, 3,613. A mid second is 3,194, and then a late 2 or a late second in 2026 is 2,968. Then we get into the third round picks. A 26 early third is 2305, 2,305. A mid third is going to be 2,200 roughly, and then a late third is going to be roughly 2,000 points. All right, so for our guy, Tony, his San Francisco 49ers, Kyle Shanahan is going into his 9th season as the head coach there. 2017 was his first season. We have a track record and quite a bit of sample size to look at as far as the success in the running back position and overall kind of what the offenses look like with Kyle Shanahan, offensive mind, as the head coach. Obviously, more recently at the running back position, we have seen Christian McCaffrey, and we all know how good and great he has been for San Francisco when healthy and on the field. But what I want to do is go through the last several years. So we're going to do 2024 last year and then go all the way through 2020, those seasons. And I think one of the things that can be missed overall with last year, obviously right now, people may say, yeah, Christian McCaffrey does have an injury history that's pretty lengthy to go off of. Sure. But overall, this San Francisco offense has really churned out a lot of very relevant fantasy seasons, and in particular, just fantasy success, even if it's in small windows, for whoever is the running back at the time, as long as they are not a complete jag. All right, so we obviously know now that Christian McCaffrey was not going to be the week 1 starter like they kept telling us. Jordan Mason was the week 1 starter, and Christian McCaffrey was nowhere near ready to go by week 1. So for the first 5 weeks of the season, right, we had Jordan Mason basically getting anywhere from 75 to 80% of the snaps. Now, mind you, this is a player that's been on San Francisco's roster for quite some time and really has gotten no run to speak of at all, right? For the first 5 weeks of the season, getting that 75 to 80% snap share, he actually, as far as fantasy points per game and overall total points scored at the running back position, right? He was RB6 for the first 5 weeks of the season. Now, going into that week 6 game versus Seattle, we know he got the AC sprain, right, for his shoulder. And at that point, really the injuries started to plague Jordan Mason's ability to get this type of high snap share and overall produce for fantasy teams like we were wanting, right? But week 7, he came off of this sprain, and he still got 86% of the snaps. So then in week 8, Dallas is playing against San Francisco this week, right? So 6 carries for 18 yards, Jordan Mason, but then he re-aggravates that same shoulder injury, which now at this point, all those touches, there's really been no one getting any type of secondary work. Isaac Guerendo, who's basically been on everybody's bench, probably in everyone's taxi squad, doing absolutely nothing. Everyone's telling you, I've been telling you so. This is Jordan Mason's team. Isaac Guerendo's not going to get any run. He all of a sudden has to come in and take all of those snaps and all the work. All right, so Christian McCaffrey comes back in week 10. The touch count was something that was talked about quite a bit. We're going to try to keep him fresh. That's what Kyle Shanahan at least says, that they're going to try to do everything they can to kind of ease him into this workload. Well, from weeks 10 to 12, he was inside of the top 10 easily as far as overall touches for this time, right? So he got a total of 56 touches from weeks 10 to week 12 that over that 3-week stretch. Obviously, we know how much work he got at that point, but Saquon Barkley had 73 touches. Then there was Joe Mixon, 68. Najee Harris had 61. Aaron Jones had 60. Jonathan Taylor, 59. Jahmyr Gibbs, 57. Followed up by Christian McCaffrey's 56. Literally, he's out touching like guys like at the point Derrick Henry, who was having an unbelievable season for Baltimore. We're talking he had more touches than Devon Achane, Kyron Williams. Kyle Shanahan's wanting to use one back primarily when he has the opportunity to. In the snow game versus Buffalo, he goes down, gets hurt. That's the end of his season. We know Jordan Mason's out of the lineup. We know that now Christian McCaffrey's gone. So from weeks 14 to 17, any running back on a 53 mentality, if you had Isaac Guerendo is in a lot of leagues and for a lot of really good teams, probably going to be someone that you're auto starting, right? He's auto starter for me on my lineup teams. Isaac Guerendo, week 14, he's running back 2, 28.8 points. Week 15, he's running back 26, but he does still get you in PPR 12.7 points. Week 17, he's running back 11, 13.7 points. Now, what happened in week 16, you might ask? Isaac Guerendo misses week 16, and Patrick Taylor stepped in, got 80% of the snaps. Now, he was hot garbage, right? He only ended up getting 8 carries for 24 yards. He had 5 targets. He only caught 1 of them. He was a total dud in week 16. Again, that's 2024. Now, 2023 and 2022, we know that Christian McCaffrey was playing great, fantastic ball for San Francisco. And at that point, obviously, we already know he was a league winner in those seasons. So going back now to 2021. Now, this is prior to the Christian McCaffrey trade. Now, Elijah Mitchell, you may or may not remember if you've been playing Dynasty long enough to the great season Elijah Mitchell had in his rookie year, and people were really excited, and the promise of Elijah Mitchell continuing to build on this did not happen. But in weeks 1 and 2, he was basically the set it and forget it started there. Weeks 5 through 10, weeks 12 through 14, and then weeks 17 through 18, he was going to be the starter for San Francisco in his rookie season. He did miss, though, weeks 3, weeks 4, weeks 11, 14, 15, and 16. Trey Sermon in weeks 3 and 4 got his chance to become the starter, where he only had 10 carries for 31 yards, and he did have a touchdown, which was good for running back 24 in week 3. Week 4, he had 19 carries for 89 yards. He did not get in the end zone, which only left him as running back 30, 8.9 PPR points. Now, fast forward into the season. Remember I told you Elijah Mitchell comes back weeks 5 through 10, takes over, and then weeks 12 through 14. So he did miss week 11. But fast forwarding here to weeks 14, 15, and 16. At that point, there was no week 18 in the 21 season. So we're talking this is the fantasy football playoffs and the championship. Jeff Wilson's running back 15 during these 3 weeks in total, right? So he actually, at 13.4 per game, he was ahead of Alvin Kamara. He was ahead of Jonathan Taylor. He was ahead of Saquon Barkley this year. Weeks 14, he was running back 33. He only had 5.6. But in weeks 15, he was 88% of the snaps, running back 3, 19.9 as far as fantasy points go. And he was running back 13 in week 16, where he was on 75% of the snaps. 14.7 was his fantasy finish. If you have someone like Jeff Wilson waiting on your bench, now all of a sudden you could have a huge, absolutely massive spark plug for your team. Now in 2020, everything I talked about there with Jeff Wilson Jr., let's do that again in 2020, but actually to a higher, more meaningful degree. He accounted for running back 7 over that stretch, running back 11 on a points per game across those 4 weeks. He was 9.4 points and 12 points in weeks 15 and weeks 14. However, Mostert goes down in that week 15 games. So that was Jeff Wilson Jr., though, as far as weeks 16 and 17, had the entire backfield to himself. And then he was running back 4 over those 2 final weeks of the season, right? 25.6 fantasy points in week 16 and 17, where he was running back 4, 27.4 points in week 16. In week 17, 83% of the snaps, 23.8. Jordan James now, even if he's going to be sliding in behind Isaac Renda, which realistically I think we should be saying that's the case. Christian McCaffrey has injury history, right? A ton of injury history and a ton of miles. At this point, they're probably going to continue to ride him, give him a ton of work when he is on the field. And if he misses time, okay, now it's going to be Isaac Renda, which even Guerrero last year, while playing a handful of games with heavy snap percentages, he still missed week 16. Last year, you saw Jordan Mason get hurt, you saw Guerrero get hurt, and you saw Christian McCaffrey get hurt. Jordan Mason's not on the team anymore, right? So now we have clear as day where Guerrero was the RB3 last year behind Jordan Mason. Jordan James is now the RB3. So for me, he's someone that I absolutely am targeting and I think has league winning potential, as well as just, and when you know that he's going to start, he's someone that I'm basically going to be putting into my teams, especially the way that I build them. He's been traded for a 26th third 3 days ago, as well as a 27th third 3 days ago. This is in a 12-team Superflex league where we're starting 12 players and we're starting 10 players. But in both of those scenarios, you could make the case, yeah, you might want to just hold on to that 3rd round pick and maybe use it closer to the fantasy football playoffs right before your deadline and try to go buy a running back that maybe at that point would be something like a spot start that wouldn't have to actually just have Jordan James all in your lineup. For me, the reason I'll take Jordan James here is I think Isaac Rendo is the running back 2 on this roster and should be. There's also no reason and no rhyme to say that Jordan James couldn't end up becoming the 2 on this offense and just be right behind Christian McCaffrey. Where they drafted him right now in round 5, I think there's also some scenario where he's going to continue to develop and become in the future someone that actually could be the running back to own on this San Francisco offense. For me, that already has so much more upside than a 3rd round pick. Plus, I can still put him and use him the way that I like to as far as any running back on a 53 where I don't have to worry about starting him until the time that I do. Now, there are a couple other ones here. Damian Martinez, listen, I love the talent of Damian Martinez. And he still is going to be the any running back on a 53 mentality in Seattle. And he's technically the running back 3 there, right? But Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet both have shown basically the ability to stay on the field over these last several years. And also, I don't really know what to think of this new Seattle offense, right? I'll take Jordan James straight up over Damian Martinez for sure. And then there's this one here, a 26 second and a 26 fourth for Jordan James and a 27 third. I'd say right now I'd probably prefer to hold off on sending a second, even if I'm getting a 3rd back, a 3rd and 4th swap. I'd probably hold off there. But I think right now Jordan James is getting closer to the appropriate value. Now, number 6 on this list, Kyle Williams. This one is crazy to me. He is up 469 spots. Yes, again, 469 spots. Wide receiver 61. He's currently 26.78 as far as his overall market goes, the value on Keep Trade Cut. That puts him at asset 179, and then when you take the picks out, he's player 161. Kyle Williams for me was someone I've actually been kind of bullish on in the pre-draft process. I didn't think he would end up getting round 3 draft capital, but then not just the round 3 draft capital, he was the first wide receiver selection for New England this year, and we saw last year, not that I didn't like some of the prospects going to New England, but they really have a ton of need at the receiver position. Kyle Williams is stepping into a scenario where he could end up becoming the wide receiver 1 for New England this season, and that's not even a stretch. Now, Kyle Williams, from where he was going pre-draft, is definitely up quite a bit. When we're taking a look at the ADP right on Dynasty Data Lab, you're taking a look here. He is the current 27th pick, so the 303 roughly, early 3rd, late 2nd in Superflex. These are going to be 12-team leagues that we're looking at right now. So if you're in a 10-team league, maybe he'll be going, higher. But at this point where he's at, I think the early 3rd round is appropriate. I'd probably be comfortable taking him in the late part of the 2nd round in a 12-team league. And then when we take a look at the trades, right, the trades are very interesting. Now, in one league, I've seen that Kyle Williams, he went here for a 26 round 3 pick. It's a 12-team league, Superflex, with starting 9 players. I'm pretty confident the way I feel about Kyle Williams, I would be willing to send a 26th third for Kyle Williams personally. Now, some of the other ones here, seen Jalen Noel straight up for Kyle Williams. And if you take a look at their ADP, they're going 2 spots apart from each other. This one I also find kind of interesting because you could have just traded the you could have just traded these picks right on the clock. But at the same point, they went after the rookie draft. They were traded, swapped 1-for-1. Now here's one here: Kyle Williams for Trey Harris. I also really like Trey Harris. I would not trade Kyle Williams for Trey Harris straight up. An interesting one here: Deebo Samuel for Kyle Williams and Harold Fannin. I think most people would take the Deebo Samuel side of this, and I'm not going to fight you if you would take that. I think from the value standpoint, that might make sense, depending on what you think of Harold Fannin especially as well. But for me, I think I'm getting pretty close to comfortable of taking that Kyle Williams side. I think I'd probably try to finesse something different or better than Harold Fannin. But if you're in on Harold Fannin, like that's, I think, a trade that you could definitely get done. If you're starting to get concerned with Deebo's injuries, going to a new team, new landing spot, how they're going to use him and what his overall fantasy success is going to be and how much that shelf life really is out there. And then another one, I think the last one I'd like to highlight, sending away Kyle Williams, Matthew Golden, and Anthony Richardson for Garrett Wilson. Now, so this is a 12-team Superflex league where we're starting 10 players. I think you could definitely make the case it feels like a lot, but not really for me. I mean, Garrett Wilson, obviously with Justin Fields, it's not going to be the same level of vigor and upside that we had for what he was going into last year with Aaron Rodgers, if that was to have turned out to be a better situation. However, I think Justin Fields right now, we've seen him support a top 12 wide receiver, top 6 actually in DJ Moore in Chicago on an extremely low passing volume offense. And the other thing about it is Garrett Wilson's value is still pretty insulated. Right now, he's at the lowest he's been in quite some time at wide receiver 15 on Keep Trade Cut. And I think he's definitely still in the wide receiver 1 mix in Dynasty right now, even though his value's fallen a little bit. But I'm willing to trade Matthew Golden and Kyle Williams, package both those up, even add A-Rich in here, as long as I wasn't, super thin at the quarterback position, package that up to go get Garrett Wilson. So I think right now, if you do have a lot of these picks, with rookie fever, that's just one scenario where you might be surprised if you put like Matthew Golden and Kyle Williams with a quarterback with some upside, even though definitely the floor is not safe, to a team that's a little more quarterback needy. You might be able to get some things done by packaging some of these rookie picks up that you have together once they turn into player names, because a lot of these player names are really going to start getting a lot of buzz. I would say that Kyle Williams is still probably a little bit of a value and probably still has a lot of room to go up as far as his overall value. And this is kind of not even assuming that he really takes a big step forward as far as what he does on the field for New England. I think he could be the wide receiver 1 this season. Now, number 5 on the list, we're talking Jaden Blue out of the University of Texas, 4-star recruit. We never really saw him put it all together as far as, I think, how he performed on the field and overall getting a full snap share and touches. Now he's up 200 spots. He's currently the running back 45, 27.57, so just a little bit higher than Kyle Williams was. Asset 171 when you include all the picks. Taking out all the picks, he's almost a top 150 player at the moment. We're talking player 153. Listen, Rico Dowdle is playing for Carolina now, right? They brought in Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. At this point, people are over the Javonte Williams experience and the Miles Sanders. I mean, people have been way over the Miles Sanders experience. So Deuce Vaughn, there's not anything really in his way as far as what we think in Dynasty is like someone that's relevant to stop him from becoming potentially, the number 1 running back in this offense. I think he's a better player and prospect for sure than Kamani Vidal is, all right? But I'm going to just bring up the Kamani Vidal syndrome of last year where J.K. Dobbins at that point we thought was pretty much his career was over, right? Nobody cared about Gus Edwards. Basically all offseason it was Kamani Vidal is clear for takeoff. There is no one in his way. He's going to be the running back 1 and rookie that takes the, just starting job from the jump. And that is something I think we got to be very cautious of and careful of here with Jaden Blue. It's not that I don't think Jaden Blue could end up being, where I talked about, any running back on a 53 with Jordan James. Absolutely. And I think his path to playing time is much more clear. I'm not going to say that it's not. But we're getting to the point where we're putting him pretty significantly ahead of Jordan James, just thinking he's going to pencil in this running back 1 spot. Again, not that it couldn't be the case, but at a certain point here, we're at running back 45 and we're going up north pretty quickly. We're going to start getting to the territory of he's going too high just based on not really knowing if he's actually going to capture that running back 1 slot. That's the one thing with Jaden Blue for me I want to be a little bit more cautious of as I'm seeing this price continue to go up. So what is he going for as far as trades and what is his ADP? The 304. So 1 pick behind Kyle Williams, but very similar, and their values overall in Keep Trade Cut are very similar as well. Let's take a look at what the trades have to say. The most recent trade is sending a 2026 second for Jaden Blue. I don't really feel comfortable doing that right now, to be honest with you guys. That's not something I would be wanting to do in Dynasty. We also are looking at Isaac Rendo and a 26-second for Ricky Pearsall and Jaden Blue. Now, depending on how you feel about Ricky Pearsall, that could be a totally different conversation. Now, here's another one. DeAndre Swift and a 26-second versus Jaden Blue and Brandon Ayuk. I think at this point, honestly, with Brandon Ayuk where he's at, not that he's not talented, not that he couldn't be a solid producer for our teams, I'm honestly not opposed to taking on DeAndre Swift straight up for Brandon Ayuk, even if that's hot takey. But I think I'd be willing to definitely make that type of a swap if I was getting some type of a plus. And then the 26-second for Jaden Blue, again, I would prefer to have the 26-second. So I'd probably be willing to take this DeAndre Swift in the 26-second. I mean, this one here, Jaden Blue for RJ Harvey. We're going to get to RJ Harvey quite a bit later. Here's one, Mason Taylor for Jaden Blue. I personally prefer Mason Taylor to Jaden Blue. But at this level of investment, like if you wanted to shoot your chance on Jaden Blue versus the tight end of Mason Taylor, I got no problem with that. And then there's a couple here that are kind of wild to me. Tyreek Hill, I know he's getting quite a bit older, and as far as how much time he still has to play, to be trading Jaden Blue for Tyreek Hill to me is just, I mean, that's irresponsible in a 12-team start 9 league. And then also Jaden Blue, the 210 and the 310 for Kyron Williams. Like, even if you don't like Kyron Williams, and I'm probably relative to consensus not the biggest Kyron guy, that's crazy. These trades are kind of crazy with Jaden Blue. To me, I think there's a lot more risk actually here than there is reward, and I'd be pretty cautious. I don't feel warm and fuzzy about him continuing to go up the ranks, despite how bad the running back room in Dallas is at the moment. All right, so fourth person on this list, Bashalt Tutin, up 98 spots, just shy of 100. He's currently up 98. I think he was up like 104 yesterday. It's going to be fluctuating a little bit here and there, give or take, depending on what people are clicking, keep trade cut. But running back 35 on their rankings, 2978 overall player value. He's asset 147, and he's the 131st player when you take out all the picks, future picks. Currently, as far as ADP goes, he's the 209, so towards the back end of the second round. So when I look at the picks overall that Jacksonville had this year, just slated to them, right, the overall assigned draft picks. So they had round 1, pick 5. They had round 2, the 36th pick. Round 3, the 70th pick. Round 4, 107. Round 5, 142. Round 6, 182. Now here's the thing, right? When you get these picks in, they make that big, huge trade with Cleveland for Travis Hunter. And that actually is where they end up taking Bashalt Tutin in round 4 with the pick they got in that trade. But the reason I think this is so relevant, just looking at what they overall had and what they traded away, where they took Tutin, right? So he's at the top of day 3. I think a lot of people may want to put, less stock into Tutin because he was a day 3 pick as opposed to being a day 2 pick. And I'm not here to say that that's not something you should be considering and making sure that you're saying it's a day 2 pick versus a day 3 pick. Absolutely, they are different, even though it was close. The one thing I think to consider, though, right? Jacksonville, their round 1 pick went to Cleveland. Their round 2 pick went to Cleveland. They ended up trading away their round 3 pick, overall the 70th. Detroit came up and took Tesla with that pick, right? Isaac Tesla. So they ended up getting 2 future thirds in next year's class, kind of trying to get some of the capital back that they traded away when making this huge trade for Travis Hunter. Because they did lose their first round pick next year, trading for Travis Hunter just from 5 all the way up to pick 2 to Cleveland. I think when you take a look overall at what they paid, what they had to mortgage to go get Travis Hunter, and the fact that Bashalt Tutin was essentially the pick that they got back in this trade in round 4, they lost their very early, 36th pick, the early part of round 2, and their future 1 next year. And Tutin is almost a day 2 pick. With what they cost basically in this entire trade overall to get Tutin, I think you could very much make the case that it's pretty close, if not more, draft capital investment than would be just a standard, late round 3 pick, so to speak. So that's something I think to keep in mind. But then on top of that, we got Liam Cohen coming over, right? Bucky Irving, round 4 pick last year, day 3 pick. Look at what happened with Rachaad White and the situation there. Bucky Irving is someone that is drafted and thriving as far as it goes in dynasty circles. And the one thing about Bashalt Tutin, he has a lot of the very high upside traits, the home run hitting ability. He has some wiggle. He has the long speed. This kid, I think, is an electric athlete. So here at this point, right? So ETN offseason last year in 2024, they picked up his 5th-year option. Now, he had a terrible 2024 season, and he could be a bounce back candidate. I think there's no question some of the injuries and some of the things that took place last year were part of the reason that he didn't do as well. However, if he does not bounce back, if he does have a horrible season again, or just not a very good bounce back season, very much a likely candidate to be gone in free agency. What would happen at that point? It's him and Tank Bigsby, where I think the role that we want, given the way that they use Tank Bigsby, not that Tank Bigsby doesn't have some talent and upside in his own right, but I think Tutin could be the guy that captures more of the pass catching upside and potentially even some of the goal line work right now for this season. Maybe he starts a little slower out of the gates because ETN's there and Tank Bigsby is there. But as we continue to progress, Bashalt Tutin could end up being the back you want to own. And just because he's a round 4 pick does not mean we should discredit how much investment that they put into Tutin at this point. So, all right, so off the rip here, this one is Bashalt Tutin, Aaron Jones in a 26th third, or a 2026 first. I mean, listen, I like Aaron Jones. I like Tutin. I think I can make the case for all 3 of these assets, but versus 26 first, I'm not doing that, especially if I'm getting off of my own flexibility of my own pick. Now, Bashalt Tutin in a 4th or Jack Beck. Now, interestingly enough, when you go take a look at the ADP, right, it's rank 19, which puts 207 is Jack Beck versus the 209 in Bashalt Tutin. I think right now I probably do lean Jack Beck. And here's the thing. The 4th on there doesn't really matter. But I think this one would come down to my specific team build, right? Now, a 26 future second. I think realistically, if I believe myself that I'm a contender, that's a pick I think it's palatable, honestly. If you feel like you're a contender, because even if you're wrong, not saying that the 201, 202, 203 is not a very nice pick, but it's not the same feeling of losing a future first and you're wrong, and now it's an early first. Now, where I'm definitely going to pump the brakes, and if you do have a chance to make some of these trades, I think it's as much as you'd like Tutin in the situation and potentially being this, running back 1 in Liam Cohen's offense, like, if there's a future first on the line, I think for me with Tutin, it's where I'm going to go ahead and pump the brakes. I'm probably going to be out of this business. So Tutin, Aaron Jones in a 3rd for a first, not really my thing. Even here, Tutin in a 2nd and 26 for a future 26 first. I'm going to go ahead and take that liquid first. 2 thirds in 2026. I think realistically, I'd probably be willing to make the bet on Tutin for that as well. We start looking here like Tutin for Ollie Gordon in the 4th. Like I'd very easily pivot my Ollie Gordon in the 4th for Tutin. A 26 third straight up. Like I would definitely take a guy that's going in the late part of the 2nd round for a future third, even if you told me it was 301 in next year's class. I'm not going to say universally, but damn near out of principle, just because of the time decay. I'd be doing that. So Tutin and RJ Harvey for Quinshon Judkins. Like I like Quinshon quite a bit, but I'll take the 2-for-1 package here. I'll let you have Quinshon Judkins, and I will take RJ Harvey and Tutin on this type of a trade. So more often than not, the trades here, I prefer the Tutin side. All right, getting us to number 3. And again, I didn't want to spoil it, but here it is. Jack Beck up 199 spots, just short of up 200 spots on Keep Trade Cut. He is now currently just snuck into the top 50 wide receivers on Keep Trade Cut. Asset 130, and he's player 118 when you take out the picks. So he's at 32.11 as far as his overall dynasty value on Keep Trade Cut. He is the wide receiver 8. He's coming off the board at the 207, just in front of Mason Taylor, right behind Trey Harris. Now, the reality is with the draft capital investment they made in him, right? So this is pick 58 off the board for Vegas in round 2. And Geno Smith is going to be someone I think that's pretty accurate. And we're looking at with Chip Kelly, this being the potential power slot receiver. Man, I think Jack Beck is going to be a sneaky upside play, but also has a ton of just stability for our dynasty teams. And with him, what are the trades looking like for Jack Beck? Now, this one here, let's start off the rip with some sticker shock. Mike Evans or Jack Beck. Mike Evans just does not stop producing. We're getting really old. I get it. But man, that one feels tough, and that feels like a kind of a direction trade. It feels like you should be able to get more for Evans. Here's one: Rich in a 12-team Superflex league. We're starting 11 players, but I'm not doing this. I'm not trading Anthony Richardson away for Jack Beck. It's Superflex, right? Quarterback is still king, and even though we got to start 11 players, to me, while the floor is low with A-Rich, the ceiling still is high, and we're not sure that they're going to move on from him in Indy unless he fails probably this year. Now, Jack Beck or Brian Robinson, I got no problem if you want Jack Beck over that for sure. 26 second or Jack Beck, again, same principle as with Tutin. I think I'll just, for the time's sake, take Beck here. Jack Beck for Kenneth Walker. That one feels like I'm definitely losing a lot of value on the Kenneth Walker side. We're talking about, mid to late part of the second round. I think I'd still hold on to Kenneth Walker in that scenario. We're taking a look here. So BTJ and Travion Henderson or Malik Neighbors and Jack Beck. Whew, man, that's tough. If you really like BTJ, right? If you believe BTJ and Neighbors in the same tier, I think this one would be very easily the BTJ and the Travion Henderson side. For me, I have Malik Neighbors in my tier 1. I have him in the same tier as Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. I would probably actually take the Jack Beck side because I think Malik Neighbors is a really hard asset to acquire. And I like Travion Henderson, but to me, I think I'd probably take the Malik side on that one. But if you really believe in BTJ, hard to argue against the other side as well. Darnell Mooney and Zach Charbonnet versus Jack Beck and Jameson Williams. Like, what? Bro, I'll take Beck over. I would take straight up right now probably Beck over Mooney and Sharps, to be honest with you. You give me Jameson Williams is easy. Here's a 3-for-1. A lot of times these I think are kind of risky, but Jack Beck, Jaden Higgins, and Trey Harris for Devontae Smith. 3 seconds, 2 or more on the early side, I'd say. Starting 11 players, I think I still want the Smitty side here. I feel like I'm getting nickel and dime too much, but you have 3. The one thing to consider here, you have 3 shots to where if any one of those 3 hits, they're probably going to be in the same breath value-wise as Devontae Smith here this, during this rookie season. So that one's not as bad as it may come off because it's 3 shots at legitimate wide receiver value. I still think I'd take the Smitty side, though. Jack Beck and Matthew Golden for Colston Loveland. Colston Loveland's value is crazy high. He's not going to be on this list because he didn't have a chance to go up enough spots. I think I'd probably take the 2 receivers here, to be honest with you. Now, it's only a half-point tight end premium, part of why I say that. And if you are very high on Colston Loveland and the tight end premium is a different scenario in this league, I could make the case for Colston Loveland there. But for me, I'll take the 2 receiver shots here. Overall, I think his market is pretty interesting, right? We're seeing Jaden Reed straight up in a trade. Jonathan Brooks straight up in a trade. I would easily take Beck over that. Khalil Shakir versus Jack Beck. If you think Jack Beck is going to come in and command the target share right away, I think I would much rather have him to Shakir. But Shakir right now is hard to argue with how good he looked with Josh Allen. So Dynasty market, key trade cut, where he's getting close to the top 100, it's appropriately valued. I think realistically, even as much as his value has skyrocketed, there's still he's still appropriately valued, and probably if he does well in Vegas, has plenty of room to capture going up as well. Jaden Higgins is the second player on this list, up 123 spots. He's wide receiver 39, so he's inside the top 40 already. Him being the second pick off the board in round 2, it's hard to argue with, man. That's a huge, huge stamp of approval by the Houston Texans taking him there. Asset 104, and he's 37.83 overall value on keep trade cut. He's inside the top 100 already. When you go to players only, player 94. And when we get to Jaden Higgins, I think here's the thing for me. I'm very high on Jaden Higgins. I like the player. I like the landing spot, honestly, even though pretty similar stylistically to Nico, I think could still operate in this offense as a number 2 and do very well. Jaden Higgins, a 26 second, and T. Higgins is far too light for CeeDee Lamb, personally, in my estimation. 2 quarterbacks. It's, whether it's Superflex or 2 QB, we're starting 10 players. This is a 3-for-1 that I still want CeeDee Lamb very much. Jaden Higgins, I like him quite a bit, but if you're telling me I just get liquidity of someone else's 26 first, I'm still taking that first over Jaden Higgins personally. So I'm not quite comfortable sending away a first for him. RJ Harvey, again, he's going to be the next person on this list. I'm sorry to keep spoiling it, but I'll take RJ Harvey over Jaden Higgins straight up. Now, if you're in a rebuild, you could make the case maybe to take Jaden Higgins over RJ Harvey. And if you have a strong, player bias towards Jaden Higgins and you believe in him, I can't really argue that. I think for me, with the value of Harvey, I'd be taking that and trying to flip Harvey if I could get the first. If I can package Jaden Higgins with a guy like T. Higgins to go up and get CeeDee Lamb, those type of trades, I'm actually a lot more in favor, typically at this point, of the asset being acquired for Jaden Higgins when I'm looking at these trades. And I think here's the big reason why I think this is kind of clear and obvious for me, and why I think this is what the trades are reflective of. He now is sneaking inside of a top 100 overall valued player, and we're talking inside the top 40. So when you're getting to wide receiver 39, there's players in the receiver rankings adjacent that are really, really valuable for production, right? So when you have Jaden Higgins attached to other valuable assets, you can get to CeeDee Lamb all of a sudden, right? You can move off of a Jaden Higgins for a future first-round pick. When you get inside of that top 100 overall player value, there's a lot different stakes, I think, that come into play. And typically, as much as I do like Jaden Higgins, I think I'd be willing to cash out now. Because even if I'm wrong, right, and let's say Jaden Higgins does very well, I'm still getting a very nice piece in value back at this point for Jaden Higgins. The things break my way as far as the risk goes, and he doesn't turn out to be a great player, you obviously have a huge home run win for yourself there. So, and the final player on this list, number one, as far as total overall dynasty value on Keep Trade Cut, is up 200 spots. Right now, up 200 spots, right? Senior Bowl winner. Running back 19 currently a Keep Trade Cut. Inside the top 20. That's already pretty hefty for sure. 45.54 as far as his current dynasty value. Asset 78 when you put the picks in. There's basically 7 picks in front of him. He's player 71 right now at the moment. Basically, his value is that of a 26 late to mid first, roughly already. Right now, basically inside the top 75. Actually, definitely, he's inside the top 75 as far as players go on Keep Trade Cut value-wise. Some things to note here. It's been kind of a big talking point, I think, in the offseason. For me, anyway, thinking about and hearing all the time about Denver wanting to get a running back. They traded back twice in round 2, incremental trade backs, but they end up getting at pick 60, right, still in round 2, RJ Harvey. And he went ahead of Caleb Johnson, who I think there was a pretty clear consensus top 5 in the class, with Caleb Johnson being inside of that top 5. A few different things with Sean Payton. One, he has what people say is a very good track record as far as drafting early running backs. And I think here's where the draft capital for me does come into play. And if you believe in that history, this would be a really big selling point. So when Sean Payton has drafted a running back, and we're talking inside of the top 70 picks, right, in the NFL. So that would be the early part of round 3. And Alvin Kamara does make that list. So he was the 67th overall player. RJ Harvey is the 3rd highest running back that Sean Payton has drafted. And he's drafted 2 first-round guys. Mark Ingram, pick 28. And Reggie Bush was pick 2 overall. All those players had a ton of fantasy success. And watching Sean Payton, the way in which he glowed about it and how excited he was and how he was like relieved. He did not want the secret to get out. He basically said, listen, Genty is the guy we want. He's different than the rest. But is that unrealistic to be able to get him? And obviously where he went at pick 6, that was unrealistic for them to get him. All right, we got to figure out what running back is our guy, our second running back off of our big board. Didn't know who it was going to be, kept continuing to watch. 2 hours into like seeing and watching RJ Harvey in person, he was saying on here, all right, be quiet. Like, don't nobody talk about this. We don't want this getting out, that this is our guy. They got to see him at the pro day. He talked, as well as the GM, about how they think he has a lot more upside in the passing game to capture, that he's a lot more natural as a pass catcher, and that the system that they ran at UCF was really just using him only as a ball carrier. They think he can be a pass catching weapon as well. He has soft hands, was specifically the quote that Sean Payton said. He also said, when he talked about his skill set, he said that he's wild, that he literally said wild, and he was having a hard time getting out his words, but saying that the explosive runs that he had, and he was one of the best in all of college football as far as runs of 10 yards or more, breakaway runs. He was one of the best in the entire NCAA last year. And he was talking about basically the song and dance they were trying to play and trading back to get more picks to draft what they needed to in round 3 and round 4. And that historically, like, they saw RJ Harvey, it's hard to know, but they saw him as going, in round 2, late round 2, early round 3. And that's where they traded back to 60, and that was the final spot where they didn't feel comfortable trading back anymore. But if you believe in Sean Payton's ability to use and choose a running back, you cannot ignore RJ Harvey. I had RJ Harvey as someone that I did really like. I thought this running back class as a whole was a very good one. So when I see he gets this type of draft capital, it's not like RJ Harvey for me was an out of nowhere prospect. Like I liked him. Seeing that Sean Payton took him here, he's very high for me. He's currently just ahead of Caleb Johnson, but in the same tier. Those are my running back 4 and 5 in this class. And RJ Harvey's a player that I think I'll end up getting even more shares of. Right now, he's slated in at the 112, back into the first round. Like, I can make the case for RJ Harvey as early as 8 or 9 in the first round. Because his price is getting more and more expensive, I did not expect to see more trades for RJ Harvey. When I basically filtered these out, I was looking for any trades that were, roughly 4 or 5, 6 definitely at most total assets in the deal to try to make it less convoluted when I'm looking at these. But when I take a look, there was so many trades that RJ Harvey was included in. Jamison Williams for Debo, Troy Franklin, and RJ Harvey. Like, for me already, I'll take RJ Harvey over JMO. So that one's pretty easy. I kind of feel like that one doesn't get done in a lot of leagues. Now, here we go. Let's get spicy. 101 Ashton Jeanty, who right now on Keep Trade Cut is valued almost as a first-round startup pick. He's asset 13. Would you rather have Ashton Jeanty or RJ Harvey and A.J. Brown in a Start 9 league? That is tough. That is tough. If you believe in Harvey and you're getting A.J. Brown, I think I could definitely make the 2-for-1 trade here. But Jeanty's being valued in, like, not elite quarterback, but just outside of elite quarterback range. So that one's just a spicy trade. I thought that was really, really cool to note as a trade that literally took place when I'm recording this. That took place today. So that was a very recent trade. Rashee Rice or RJ Harvey. This is, I think, the range where, you could definitely make the case for Rashee Rice, of course, easily. I think there's some risk and some concern for me with Rashee Rice. I still probably would not be willing to trade away my Rice share for Harvey, though. I'll admit that for sure. Jackson Dart or RJ Harvey and Terrence Ferguson. I mean, even if I was quarterback needy, I don't think I'd like to do this. Forget the Ferguson part of it, but I would take RJ Harvey for sure there. Khalil Shakir or RJ Harvey? RJ Harvey for me. Cole Kmet and Breece Hall or Jatavian Sanders and RJ Harvey. I think here, as much as I do like RJ Harvey, I don't think I'm taking RJ Harvey here. I think Breece Hall, I still think the talent of Breece Hall is too much to pass up on in a trade like this. So again here, this one is kind of interesting. So it's a 26 first for RJ Harvey in the 4th. And the reason I say it's interesting, I've talked about with Jaden Higgins going ahead and just cashing out for the first round pick. I think if I'm a team that's not contending, rebuilding, I would definitely just flip for the 26 first, no questions asked on a rebuild side of things. And maybe you're like, no, I want to see a little bit more of the value accrue happen. Now, if he does play well and is getting the heavy percentage of snaps like Sean Payton's talking about, sure, there's probably some value to gain. But what if he doesn't do that? What if he gets hurt, unfortunately? Those things on the rebuild side, I'm willing to cash out for a future first at this moment. Boom, done. On a contending team, and I'm kind of having some of my contending teams where I'm thinking about doing this and moving my first in. I think the correct process is to not send a first for RJ Harvey. He's still a running back. I think he's highly touted as far as this draft pick, and his value is going to continue to rise. But we just don't know that the production is going to meet it, and you can't guarantee that he stays healthy and does well enough for that liquid first. So I think I would prefer not to do that if I had the ability to. If you're really bullish, I think that's what the market says, though. Looking at some of these other trades, right? There's several that have the first round pick involved. RJ Harvey in 2 first. RJ Harvey in a 26 and a 27 first for Jahmyr Gibbs. Listen, Jahmyr Gibbs is dope, and I'm not telling you that I have him running back 1 in Dynasty, and I think I have for quite some time. Saquon Barkley's in that mix, so is Bijan Robinson. Man, you could definitely make the case for Gibbs, and I'm not telling you that Gibbs is I'm just moving on from Gibbs, but this would be one of those trades that even on a contender, man, I'm really strongly thinking about. Not that Harvey's going to produce like Gibbs. I'm not telling you that he is, but man, what can you do with those 2 first in another trade? Can I end up getting like – could I basically have in a scenario here where I have RJ Harvey and a Puka Nacua, right? Like, man, that's tough, right? That's the type of territory I think that type of a trade puts you in. So there's a lot of really interesting ones here because you're getting to big boy type of trades in this scenario. Oh, here it is. So RJ Harvey and Haronde Gadsden and Christian McCaffrey. This one, listen, Christian McCaffrey, if he stays healthy this next year, probably is going to destroy what RJ Harvey can do as far as production. But man, I feel like even on a contender, like you're playing a pretty risky game probably. Like the Gadsden piece is completely irrelevant. You're probably playing a pretty risky game though with a 28, going to be 29-year-old running back. Not that he's not a special talent, but not being able to just pivot off of that to a guy like RJ Harvey. I think there's a scenario where during the start of the season, when Christian McCaffrey's playing well, everyone's going to say, oh, yeah, take the Christian McCaffrey side. And I'm not going to tell you that I wouldn't either there, but just the fact that you are seeing a trade 1-for-1 McCaffrey for Harvey, one, it should tell you where Harvey's getting to, and two, if you are trying to just pivot into another running back that does have some upside still to capture, not a horrible one to consider if you're having a hard time moving CMC. So those are overall the trades for RJ Harvey that I wanted to highlight. And again, these are the 7 rookies whose dynasty value has skyrocketed after the NFL draft. There's a lot to go through there. Let me know what you thought overall of these players, if you agree or disagree with some of my sentiments or takes on the players. And let me know down in the comments what you thought of the video, what you think of these players, and what are some other videos you want to see from Nick and myself as we're gearing up for the NFL season during this summer. See you back here, same time, same place, next week for the BDGE Dynasty channel. I'm out of here. Peace.